Welcome to the VO School podcast, dedicated to the art, craft, and business of voiceover. Each week builds upon the last to give you a comprehensive understanding of a career in VO. My name's Jamie Muffett. I'm a full-time voice talent and audio engineer, and I'll be joined by some of the industry's top professionals on both sides of the microphone to drill down and dig up the truth. Hello, welcome to the VO School podcast, and before we begin, I want to tell you about a rather exciting development. Now, you may have heard last week that we have set up a Patreon page, and if you'd like to contribute, if the podcast helps you in any way, and you'd like to give back, or you'd like to help us to continue making this podcast, please consider becoming a patron, and you can do that by visiting patreon.com/VOschool. Okay, so on to today's episode, and this is a very humbling one for me, and I think for you too when you listen to it. Over the course of the last year, it's come to light that a voiceover coach based in New York had been assaulting women sexually for really 20 years. And a group of women got together with the rise of the MeToo movement and begun to talk about it online, in person, and all hell broke loose really about a month or two ago when an article written for CNN finally came out. And since then, many women have come forward with similar stories, up to almost 60 at this point. So today's episode features 5 of these women, and for many of them this was the first time they'd actually met each other. And you're about to hear a very frank and at times quite difficult to hear discussion about what they went through and how they've come together and are fighting back. So given the subject matter, it's no surprise that this episode features strong language and detailed description of sexual assault. I'm not going to be bleeping out the words because this stuff needs to be heard, so if you are of a sensitive disposition, you may want to give this episode a miss, but I really recommend strongly that you don't. So before we get to the ads, I want to thank Julia Nippen from Soundvine Studios in New York City. She very kindly agreed to record this at her place for free, and she's got a fantastic facility there. So if you're in New York and you need to do an audition, if you want to come and record a project, you should definitely reach out to her, and the address to visit online is soundvinestudios.com. So without further ado, we'll have a couple of quick ads and then we'll get into the discussion.
Connect your studio to the world with IPDTL. IPDTL is a cost-effective alternative to ISDN without the need for hardware or line rental. Connect, mix, and record up to 4 locations at the same time, including phone patch, right from your computer. You don't need additional software as IPDTL runs in your browser, and you can even get your own ISDN number. Try a day pass for just $15 or subscribe monthly or yearly. So for directed sessions, interviews, and of course podcasts, choose IPDTL.
The National Zoo. Because sometimes you just need to stroke a llama.
Instagram. Download it and start embarrassing your teenagers today.
Resolve spot and stain. Because the dog's gonna drag his butt on the carpet. He just is.
Engage the droid army with this LEGO Star Wars Republic fighter tank.
Hi, it's J. Michael Collins, and these are just a few examples of the first-class demos my team and I are producing. If you'd like to have something similar, visit jmcvoiceover.com and click on the Demo Production tab to find out more.
I'm Sarah Aslan. I'm coming together with 5 of us women that we're just going around a circle introducing. Go ahead.
I'm Amanda May.
I am Alyssa, no last name.
I'm Angie.
And I'm still Samantha.
Just a quick intro. We're here to talk about our experience with the serial sexual predator voiceover coach named Peter Rofe, who has finally been outed after, well, as far as I'm concerned,
decades.
20 years, maybe?
Yeah,
1999 was one of our first accounts. Just quickly in a nutshell, this is Sarah talking. I stumbled upon a Facebook post by Elizabeth Lame, and I don't think she would mind me saying her name. She was the first one I saw to say something about Peter Rofe, and from there I became the 10th person to reach out to Elizabeth and Heather Costa. 10 became 16, and around about 16 we contacted Bryn Gingras from CNN, and she had done a lot of pieces on sort of Me Too stories, And she saw a story here in the coming together of 16 women. It wasn't the scandal or the horror or the sort of sensationalism of the Me Too story. It was the coming together. And in that angle, we were able to out this motherfucker for 20 years of this enormous range of gruesome behavior. From me, it went to like 30 women. I think we found Samantha on Yelp. Then after the CNN piece came on, I think teams of other women. We're almost about at 60 right now. Yeah. Sexual assaults over the course of 20 years at the hands of a voiceover coach who is now still working, I should say.
And there's got to be 100 out there.
There's got to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they have to range.
We all know people who aren't a part of the group.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
People just still don't want to talk yet.
They don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's still new.
It's still hard.
Yeah.
I mean, we've all as women experienced our entire lives that we weren't supposed to talk about this.
Yeah.
That we weren't allowed.
Absolutely.
That it was, if we did say something, we were going to be the ones that were told we were wrong and whatnot.
Well, there's victim shaming was. I just assumed that I was complicit in the whole thing.
I did too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Now, can I go? Let me ask about that, because that's like that to me is really the reason why I was going to take this to the grave, and I think why a lot of women were, is that I was in a locked room with someone that I was paying, and I took my shirt and bra off. And for me, and I should just say quickly, I looked over and he was naked and he was masturbating on himself. That's my story. But I felt because he coerced me into nudity, I was complicit and that I was going to get victim shamed. I really thought that. It was one of the most horrible things that's ever happened to me, and I just didn't understand it for 14 years. So can we talk about like what that feeling is? Because I think that's why women are silent now.
I mean, I was with my my husband, who I'm with now. At the time, we were dating then. So I think, I was just so I felt ashamed, like I did something wrong. Like even though he made me feel like I was doing it for the craft, I also felt like I was like. I didn't feel like I cheated on my husband, but it did feel, you know what I mean? I mean, I guess it did, you know, and that, even just now, was hard to admit. That was just such a feeling of shame and of, like, how could I have done this when I'm with this man I love and I can't tell him? What does that mean? And it just, how do you process that?
I know.
I
felt that same guilt, and that's why I said nothing forever.
No, I didn't either.
And this is a master manipulator who's able to make you feel that
Absolutely.
way.
Yeah,
well, and I mean, even kind of on kind of the day where things happened mostly for me, there was a point when he was, trying to convince me to derobe, and he was going to derobe. And I can remember thinking and saying, well, what would you tell your wife? Like, what would I tell my friends? And without even a beat, he said, well, I wouldn't tell my wife, and you shouldn't tell your friends.
Yeah, well, she knows now.
And for some reason, and when I look back at that, I look at that and I say, Amanda May, you knew this was wrong, and you had your out, and you didn't take it. And so for me, that almost made it like I was that much more complicit. You know what I mean? And so that was, to a certain degree, kind of the nail in the coffin for me. And I didn't tell my friends. The first time I ever told anybody was about 4 or 5 months ago when the Me Too movement started. But I had literally never said it out loud. And I actually am a rape survivor. It hadn't been that many years before that. It was at the university. And so I think partly for me, I had just these, every couple of years you get a couple of crap years in a row. And mine just happened to be right then. So I had that my freshman year, and my parents were in the middle of a divorce. And so, you had like less of a support system than you're used to. And then I am also a 9/11 survivor. And so this was coming right off of the heels of both of those things that I had been working through, but had not been able to yet at that point. So once this happened to me, I was just kind of like, all right.
That's it.
We're just going to chalk this up to a shitty 5 years.
Right.
Do you feel that sort of... I think a lot of us feel that liberation after being able to...
I do, but I have to say that, like, as soon as I read the article, a friend of mine posted it, who was also friends with Heather Costa, and got me...
hey, Heather, what's up?
Yes, got me connected right away. So then once all of that hit me and I started to kind of think about it, and I decided to call my mom right away and kind of... I didn't give her the full story, but I kind of told her. It was like within that first, 48 hours... in ways that, and we all have so many things that happen to us that we can look back on and say, oh yes, that affected how I made certain decisions. Right. But I look back on this now and I see in kind of dramatic ways how it has informed every decision that I have made over the last 20 years of my life, and in ways that I didn't realize. So I am going to be looking into therapy and working that out, which I think is great. But
the grotesque thing is that for a man's arousal, that's what makes me crazy.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
element. It's all he was.
Well, that's.
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Well, the idea that you would, my friend and I have talked about this a lot, like the idea that this would turn someone on is so perverse and so, it's the idea that someone would be turned on when it's so obvious. Not a single one of us was complicit. Not a single one of us wanted this. It was never reciprocated. And the idea, no, of course not. And the idea that this would turn someone on is so, it's repulsive, but it's also, it just gobsmacks.
But it's a power thing. I mean, that's all it is.
And it's also, I mean, for me, when the nudity happened, when he used the guise of a Bud Light commercial with a naked beer bottle, and he told me to close my eyes and to just react, because I needed to react. I closed my eyes and opened them. He's standing there completely naked, and then and wants me to respond and read copy. My first thought wasn't he was trying to assault me or he was trying to harass me. I was thinking, oh, I'm cool. I did hair in community theater. I got naked. You know, he's not trying to touch me. But then it was afterwards when it was... we finished the copy, and then he was asking me if I thought his dick was big, and then asking me like big, and if he had a nice dick, and telling me how he had pornography in one of his desk drawers that he would masturbate to when nobody was around, and it was, and then
like you want to brag about this,
right? But then it was going home, and I'm sure with a lot of you, he used to tape. He would tape the copy, and I played it back, and he had stopped the tape recorder.
The tape every time he would say something that was off.
So that's when I was just like, well, wait a minute. If this was just a normal acting class and he's just a little hippy dippy, whatever, trying to be free, that'd be one thing. But then why did he stop the tape?
Yeah, if you can't own it,
because he knew it was wrong.
Tape,
and then it was the follow up thing. It was when I knew it was really when it was like finally was when I went to do my demo, and I had just gotten engaged, and I went into the booth. The engineer wasn't there yet. I had closed the door, and I turned around. Of course, it's a glass door, and he's standing out there, and he's masturbating, and he asked me if his cock was bigger than my fiance's. And this was literally 3 minutes before I recorded my demo. And I'm just
that you spent how much money?
That I spent
thousands.
But that's the thing about
at some point I want to talk about the thousands of dollars we've all lost.
And there's legal stuff there too. But this idea of coming, a lot of us were so, I know that I was just out of theater school. I had 4 years of like psychological safe environment theater training where like you go to really deep places. I'm doing it myself in my own rehearsal process. It is a violation of quote unquote, and I'm using heavy quotes, this method technique that he wanted to use where you can't actually feel sexual unless you're rubbing your tits, which is what he wanted me to do.
It was there was this constant, it was almost like this machine. It was like a machine that you just felt like you just had to go along with what he was insisting on because he was the expert. I was actually a bit older when it happened, and I carried a lot of shame about that. I thought, come on, Angie, you're not some, you're not some young woman to easily be taken advantage of. I had enormous shame about that. And I remember just while it was going on, it was almost like entering a fugue state.
Exactly. That's how I felt. And just
being kind of like, okay, just keep your head down and get through this. It can't possibly be making me sound sexier because I'm so uncomfortable. Yeah. But I remember walking out the door and just going, what the hell just happened in there? And I remember thinking to myself, well, if you had any, saying to myself, if I had any instinct for self-preservation, I would have taken off the headphones and picked up my bag and said, we're finished here, and walked out. And because I failed to do that, I've spent the last 3 years just in the grip of all this shame and self-hatred, going, well, you don't have a leg to stand on.
But yours was 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
You're able
to I mean, to be honest about that.
Just out of curiosity, what's everybody's years? Like, what was your
2004?
2004.
Yeah.
2004.
2002, 2003.
2004, 2005.
And mine was 2015.
So it's enormous, the span.
The span of this, and I did read in the article that I may be misquoting this exactly, but there had been some activity in 2004, and then the rest record.
He was arrested in 2004.
He's arrested, and then the record was sealed. And I thought to myself, how the hell did that happen?
Well, there was, especially with what you were talking about.
This must have been.
It was such a different feeling for me being in the community because, I did stay in New York City. I am successful in the voiceover industry here in New York. And there have been several times over the years that this has come up. That casting directors knew about it and put some of us together.
Rofe specifically?
Specifically knew about Rofe. That agents knew about it. That he was dropped from his agency because of this. And that some of us did get together. I mean, I met Heather or got in contact with Heather back in, it was either 11 or 12, because someone had said, oh, there's some movement with this again, and they're trying to start some legal proceedings. And it all started, and we got the same answer we got in 2007, that we even had this time when we were talking about actual legal ramifications for him, is that it's past the statute of limitations. And so it felt like we weren't allowed to say anything.
Yeah.
That
if you can't fully... then you're not like supposed to say something bad about someone unless you can back it up with like.
I'm just so frustrated by this, because so much has changed. I mean, this is revolutionary, as we know.
Yes, it is.
And the whole MeToo thing never existed, and women never talked about this. So I just don't understand how the statute of limitations can hold up.
I think it'll change.
I'm really hoping that will change. I don't know if it's
going to be for our case in this situation now, but it needs to.
We as women all know. We all have friends or personal experiences. I don't know anyone that doesn't at least know someone firsthand that has had some sort of assault.
Everyone.
But most women aren't in power. It's mostly men in power. But women know, most of us stay silent. Most of us were told it's going to be harder for you than for them, and to be quiet about it. And so let us talk about it, but to actually change the law, I don't know if we're going to be able to push it through. It may be another...
It's so ingrained in us to just kind of accept this sort of boys will be boys mentality. And for me personally, one of the real big revelations about this, just kind of generally and socio-politically, if you will, is that when the MeToo movement first started, I was concerned, and there have been some articles. I know Daphne, I think Merkin wrote an article in the Times about this, and there have been some other articles about how the MeToo movement has, in some ways, like blurred the lines between, cases of rape versus, and I thought, and when the MeToo movement first started, I did, of course, think about this, and I thought, well, I had this thing happen, but I wasn't raped, and it wasn't, it was a one-time thing, and it was kind of brief. But one of the things, what I just want to say is that one of the things about the MeToo movement that I think, ironically, I feel this way now, it is good that these lines are getting blurred. Yeah. Because no matter where on the spectrum of behavior it is, it's all wrong. Yeah, and it's all very much the result of this culture that boys and girls have been conditioned from the start, from the ground up. And that it needs to change, I think, from the ground up. It's not simply that it needs to come from the top down. It really needs to start from underneath.
We need to raise them differently.
Exactly. Exactly. And women need to be raised differently. Women need to be raised to understand that this is not
raise fucking hell if someone touches you. I say to my boys, I'm like, if anybody touches you, you fucking, and I use swear words so they'll remember.
Right. That kind of leads into, one of the biggest issues I had with going through this was that I wanted to have kids, but I was terrified. I did not want to have a daughter. I was terrified because I did not know how to protect her from this. Yeah. And I couldn't grasp it myself. So I thought, how do I do that? And I remember having a conversation with my mother, and I was angry with her, like, why didn't you protect me from this? Like, why didn't you protect me from this? But ironically, and she was also in the film industry for a long time, and but she did not experience this. I don't. I mean, I was really kind of shocked. But
it's the film industry thing is the funny thing.
Yeah,
because especially when all the things came out with Harvey and some of these other directors, I had friends, quote, quote, Facebook people commenting, it's like, oh, an actress was asked to give a blowjob to whatever. Oh, that's, big surprise. Like, it wasn't a big deal.
Right.
But it's like, if you put it into context,
it's like business as usual.
Yeah, exactly, because we're actresses, so it's just part of the casting couch. It's just part of how it is. But if
it's like woven into the fabric,
exactly. It's like that makes it okay,
right? Like it's just kind of woven into the fabric of what what's expected of us.
But if you were and in college, if you're in college, and if there was, and this is come up, if there is a college professor that is asking his female students to get naked, or he's getting naked in front of them, it would be huge, crazy. He would be fired. There would be criminal cases. But yet,
I know.
a teacher or a director can do the exact same thing
and not be held accountable. That's the art thing again. That's why that's why I was able to cross that line with this fucker, is because he used my actress mentality against me.
I want to be a good
he knew
actress.
that. He knew the language.
I would say the same. I would say the same was true of me. You know, because he always liked to say to me, "Well, you're an actress. You're an actress. So I'm just going to help you out."
And there's no actress that won't respond. I'm so sorry. I'm such an asshole.
No, that's okay.
There's no actress that won't respond to "You're not there yet." Like if that makes an actress go, well, I've got to get there no matter what, you know.
No matter what, I'll do whatever it takes.
And then this fucker knows that, and
exactly.
it kills me. Go, Amanda.
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, you know, I was coming right out of graduating from NYU, and like, you know, I did a lot of studio hopping. I wasn't in the experimental theater wing, but like, I certainly had plenty of actors and actresses derobe in front of me during class, during scenes,
during performances.
You know what I mean? During
changing
all the time. Well, not only that, but I mean, even shows that the school put on required nudity in them, and I mean, it was always this very like actory. Like, it was like, how much of a real actor are you?
How far are you willing to go?
Like, how far, you know, and I was never somebody who, I mean, it's not even like the type of acting that I did or anything, so like, it didn't really fall into like, it was never something that I really, like, I watched plenty of people do it, you know what I mean?
It was
like, all right, but like,
yeah, but I mean, undressed in front of each other in dressing rooms.
And as a stage manager, I've even stage managed shows where there's full nudity, but like, there's a huge process, and like, it's with the union, and like, there's all these protections.
But the difference here for me is consent. If you are okay, I was sexually ambushed by this guy. I walked in there thinking, it was my fourth session. I walked in there thinking that I wasn't going to get masturbated to, and then suddenly I was. That's an ambush. And that's not consensual. I have done a ton of stuff. I've worked in the theater since I was 5. I've done a ton of freaky shit. And all of it was consensual. All of it.
That was the other thing. It's not even the consensual thing, but the sexualization of it. Yeah. Like, when I did hair, there wasn't an audience full of people jerking off.
Yeah,
no.
Exactly.
I mean, at least God, I hope not. But the fact that he made it sexual, that it wasn't just, okay, we're going to do this scene and we are going to disrobe so we can free ourselves. Okay, now we did it, we're done, let's move on. No, it was, here's my erect cock, and I'm going to fucking stroke it, and I'm also going to ask you questions afterwards that have nothing to do with the scene. Yeah. Like, I'm going to talk about sex and personal things.
Everyone has that
are outside of that.
It's unbelievable.
Just out of curiosity, did he expose himself to all of you?
Oh, yeah.
Because he did not expose himself to me. Yeah. He groped me, but he did not expose himself.
Those are the two. It's either like a public exposure or it's grabbing women and holding them.
And that's what
it's a combination of the two.
Early on.
Yeah. Right. I think maybe
over the years he probably
graduated.
Over the years he did. I mean,
I was wondering.
The stories we read, which we won't share.
By 2015, maybe he was, still pulling shit, but just not maybe quite as brazenly.
Some
of them are like
like sloppy. Like he got really sloppy towards the end.
I don't know, and I don't know whether maybe because of my age he knew only to put. I don't know. Like,
I don't think that matters.
I don't think push
it so far with me.
That much thought into
he doesn't. It's a woman who's locked in a room.
Yeah,
that's all.
I mean, and here's the other thing. I have a background.
He had us all by the short and curlies in one way or another.
Yeah. I have a background in mental health counseling. My master's is in counseling, and a lot of his actions and reading the different stories, it definitely was a compulsion. And that's why there was a beginning and his progression to, in the beginning, he was testing the waters, just like someone that is on the more violent side may experiment with. Exactly. And then it builds from there. And that's what he did. He's like, okay, he had to do it. I really feel
what's that about?
He is a sexual deviant. Yeah. That is the bottom line. He is a sexual deviant.
But I suspect he's also a bit of a narcissist.
Oh, he's enormous.
In that, and I lived with a narcissist for 5 years. So I have, unfortunately, I have some firsthand experience with a lot of verbal violence and emotional abuse, and I think, what I observed, with Peter Rofe and with my ex, is that there's just this sense of like, I'm going to do this just because I can.
Yeah.
And I'm going to push the envelope as far as I can, even if it falls off the table. And it's like there's just this, it's like there's almost this, I mean, somebody used the word compulsion. It's like there's this compulsion to just like, I'm just going to do.
But then there's no consequences for Peter Rofe.
Right.
And that's why I bring it back to this. Is the statute of limitations is one thing. Yes, we can't right now legally get to him, but what we can do is tell the press, and that will, in 2018, I think that will destroy.
The court of public opinion is going to destroy his ass.
I know.
Every single time.
I'm surprised to find out that he's still working. I didn't realize he was.
Well, he still
somebody
has a,
said he was
he still has a business.
Yeah, he still has a business.
Well, I will say his website is down.
His website's down.
There has been
his LinkedIn page is still up.
4 articles in local Hudson Valley.
Oh, right. I saw those that you guys were posting.
I
There have been a lot of articles.
And they wouldn't.
This has been, to kind of go back with what you're saying, I've had a very different reaction to all of this. There's been the one side where there's been a relief and somewhat of a closure that it has finally come that he's gotten his. Yeah. But at the same point, I still have that fear. I am in this community.
I
live
fear of retaliation.
Not far from him. And there's a couple of us that live not far from him.
I live very close to him.
And
I'm in Westchester.
I'm in Rockland. And just also just being in the community. I don't want to be that girl that goes and that's so-and-so. Oh, she was, she's one of those people that,
branded.
I don't want to get branded.
Yeah, understandably.
And so there still has been a fear for me. Like even though I reached out to some of the local news to let them know about it. I wasn't someone that posted something on my Facebook to scream loud and proud, hey, this happened to me. Right. And I still have that fear. And that's part of what has led to all of us getting to this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the repercussions of us standing up and saying something.
Of the 5 of us, who else is currently actively working in the voiceover? You're not.
Just theater.
Yeah.
I work in theater.
And I do theater, but I don't. Yeah, I don't do.
From the people that are, I know. I'm not going to name any names, but I know myself and one other person that's in New York, and then I know 2 people that are current in voiceover in LA.
In LA, okay.
That are in our group. And
our group of 57.
It's 57.
57.
I thought it was 58.
I think it might have been bordering on 58. I can't remember.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, the CNN article did wonders for digging people out of the
That's how I found out.
That's how I found out about it.
And the responses were, well, I think, the responses were, I read this. And my jaw fell on the
floor. That's pretty much what happened.
I was on the toilet at work, and I was just like, wait a minute.
I cannot emphasize enough how I truly was going. I was just like, this isn't in the narrative of my career. Yeah. This is not going to be part of my life.
I was never going to. Nope. I had made peace with it. I did finally tell my 2 roommates. They were the first people I'd ever spoken about it out loud after the MeToo thing came out, and we've got a nice little backyard, and we just like to hang out in the back and drink wine, and
it came out.
And we were talking, and obviously it had enough wine, and and I said, well, I actually, oddly enough, do have a MeToo story that I've never shared with anyone, and I shared it with them. But I think even after that, I was like, oh, that was good that I said it out loud. Because it was very hard to say out loud.
I remember that feeling.
It is.
And,
judgment. Because of judgment.
Yeah, because I'm judging myself with every step.
Has anyone, can I ask, because we are very much on high alert for victim shaming, because especially in the arts, like, it's sort of weirdly vague area. Has anybody gotten that response from anyone? Because I've sort of walked the line.
Not yet. Not yet. I'm happy to say, but
I'm not going to say names because I don't want to be one of those people that shame somebody else, but we all know who I'm talking about, that there is someone in the industry that has kind of victim shamed us.
Yes.
Kind of victim shamed us and has definitely made it more about them than us. Of course. But I will say from the New York side of things, because it was kind of known in the New York community, I have had people call me and say that how proud they are that this is finally happening, that they're happy that this is happening, that they support everything, have pulled me aside, and have been just super, 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 super supportive, including Julia Nippon, who is allowing us to use her studio today.
Thank you, Julia.
For free.
Thank you.
With wine for this podcast. But there has been really, really amazing support.
I've been shocked by that.
Yeah.
Like 99% of people I tell are like, fuck yeah, stand up, get burning.
Yeah, everybody is like, I'm so sorry this happened to you, and
why didn't you a lot of it, the why didn't you tell me always annoys me. But a lot of the people I knew back then were like, I can't believe this happened, you were only blocks away from me, like.
Right.
So.
But it is known, like, my non-union agent has emailed me every time someone has talked to her.
Wow.
Because I got her through Peter. And so she was getting emails. Did you know about this? I read about this. Didn't used to work with him. And she's like, I absolutely knew. I stopped working with him years ago. I have been with my clients that had this happen. I've been supportive of them and helping them in any endeavors to shut him down. Yeah. And she has been ridiculous over the years. Been supportive.
This is your agent.
This is one of my agents.
Oh, that's excellent.
And
that's very heartening.
Very. And then actually my union agent sent an email out to all of his clients and contacts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mine too.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
He's so lovely.
I love him.
When did that?
So
when was that?
he sent the email out maybe
just a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
just really recently.
He was so nice about the whole thing.
Yeah, and just like if anybody has anything, please feel free to contact. And he had Heather's contact and information on how to get into the group. But there has been tremendous support in the New York voiceover community.
That's wonderful.
Because that's where he was.
Yeah.
And it's just too well known.
Yeah.
Even if people didn't talk about it, it's just,
I mean, he was recommended. I'll never forget it, how he was recommended to me. It's unbelievable.
Same.
And this is a trap. You are sending someone into a trap.
Well,
that's what annoys me about him. If we are sure he's still in business, I'm not sure. But there is still that potential for a trap.
Absolutely.
That's honestly my biggest, for me, to have discovered all of you women has been unbelievably helpful, and I know that it will continue to be so for me as I, it's just nice to know that, like, if I'm having a shitty day, you know what I mean? I can jump on and be like, I couldn't do it today. You know what I mean?
I sometimes feel guilty because it's not as though I'm not into Schadenfreude at all, and it's not as though I take any. But right now I'm making an exception.
What his life must look like. I spent 14 fucking years thinking that I was at fault, and I hope he feels real bad.
And there is strength in numbers. And so while I take no pleasure in this having happened to any of you or anybody else, there has been something there's something about, as corny as it sounds, the magic of sharing. And there is something about the strength in numbers that has been really emboldening.
It's been therapeutic.
It's been really therapeutic. And I feel like, it wasn't just me. Yeah. I'm not the only one who didn't get up and walk out when I should have.
Did you think it was just you?
I thought that it so happens that when I went to see Peter, when I went to enroll in classes and sign up for the reels at his studio, I was just at a nadir. It was really a low point professionally, personally, and I think he smelled that. I think people like this, in my experience, smell that from miles away, and I think that he saw that I was a very easy target. And
you were no, don't label
I'm not even letting you.
Okay, thank you.
Don't take that word.
Okay, you guys can. I'm giving you. You can kick my butt on that.
He took years figuring out. And like calculating, he was calculating, and he grooms you,
and he did.
And he also practiced. He did this for years and figured out how to do this.
Right. and it went back as early. I mean, some of the cases go back as early as 99. So by 2015, he was pretty damn good at this.
You were not an easy target.
Thank you.
You are not. He's
because my energy was so. I am sure. I don't know if any of you guys are Margot Price fans. I was desperate and depressed, and I was like, I was so like
But you were going to him for inspiration.
But I was going to him for inspiration. I was excited to. I was.
But look,
oh my God.
You're still even, and you know what? I am sure, and no offense to any listeners out there right now, but you're doing it. And I'm sure there's people out there like, oh yeah, well she did this or she did that, or even not even consciously, but just because we are so
working through that.
It is ingrained that it's our fault.
Right now, I never thought that I would get through this. I thought this was something I was just going to bury.
Yeah.
And
I did too.
I'm going to deal with this.
That's what I thought too.
I told my husband last year about him exposing himself to me because I don't know, something prompted me. I was working through it. I actually could not work through it past that. Still couldn't work past that. Couldn't admit.
You just said he exposed himself.
Could not ever admit of taking my shirt off until I read your story, Sarah. And I couldn't. When I first talked to Elizabeth, I told her the version that I was ready to accept in my head still about him exposing his dick. I had gotten that far, but I still couldn't even say to Elizabeth when I first talked to her until I went to the forums, until I started reading everybody's stories, until I read your story. And to be able to...
the exact same story.
Our
it's
story
like
is
freaky, the same week, probably.
Yeah, and to be able to do that, I mean, there was a process, obviously, of crying and healing and going through that, and then the CNN thing was a ball of anxiety going through that. I didn't expect that was going to be as it was, but it was a huge fucking release.
It's been a huge
and
relief.
Right now, after all this has passed, I feel no shame anymore. You cannot feel shame anymore.
No.
I mean, it's not our fault. You've read the stories. We were all manipulated.
We were manipulated.
We are all strong women. You are not weak. You are not weak because of your age or because of anything. Nothing. I am not going to accept that I was weak.
Oh, I love
you know, that's how I feel now.
Thank you for that.
He feels bad. It's his turn to feel decades of shame.
But I feel,
coming to you.
and I, you know, as long as we're talking about this, I want to say something else too, which is that we all have a lot to say here, which is that I feel that I was taken advantage of not only sexually by Peter Rofe, but I feel like I was conned.
Yeah,
I feel like I was conned, and everybody here was financially. When I have had equally much shame about the amount of money that I spend on that garbage product.
Yeah. I want to comment. Let me let you finish, but then I'm going to comment on that.
Go ahead.
Okay, you know, and one of the things that I've been saying is that I know I have read in some places that he's being, you know, that he's considered the Harvey Weinstein of the voiceover industry, which is absolutely accurate. I also feel that he's the Jordan Belfort of the voiceover industry, which is, you know, awesome. I really do, which is that I feel that, you know, this is clearly somebody who saw, you know, opportunities. Yeah. Not, you know, there. I mean, the sexual assault was there, but there were other ways.
There are women that are like, my grandpa loaned me this money. My grandma. I mean, there are so many.
I have carried equally much shame about the amount of money that I handed to that con man, that shyster, that vile, disgusting piece of shit, as I have about the sexual assault.
This actually kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, that this isn't the first time that some of us have come together. And so there's a group that has come together a few times, and most of them are in this group now. And the different times that we've come together, we've gone to his page and looked at the females and thought and tried to reach out or thought about reaching out.
This is before the page was shut down.
This was before MeToo. This was 5 years ago, 8 years ago. One of the things that we found out, not only through our searches, but through talking to the agents that knew about it, people that had worked with him in 2004 and earlier, was that his reputation was lagging. He had the quality of demos he was producing
he was trying to
has continuously dropped.
Right, sure.
He built his reputation earlier in his career, which allowed him to write a book with Randy Thomas.
Right, which I have. I want to have a book burning party.
And to get recommended by all of these people, but he stopped worrying so much about his product. And it was more about the assault.
Well, I have to say that Samantha came out. You were the first one on the. I would Google. Spend 14 years Googling his name, and then I find your first one.
This is what's crazy. This is what's so crazy, because I was also closing some doors on some other Me Too chapters, so I had fire on my ass when I was looking, but I had been looking over the years, because Peter tried to contact me through LinkedIn a few times.
Yeah, he does that.
Me too. He tried to, I think he friended me on Facebook.
And I was like, and every time that would happen, so disgusted. And he drove me out of the voiceover. I've had nothing. I'm not an actress. I'm not in theater. I was a radio DJ. That was my, thing. So that was, but I never was comfortable as an actress. But he drove me out of that. I wasn't in there with all of you, and I would look like you did and at least you had connections in the industry, and I would look, but at Yelp, and then when I found that one thing. It
we
was
were
just
like,
the timing
somebody just tore him down on Yelp. We have to find her. I was like, who's Samantha? And everybody like on our Facebook.
Wow, I'm so glad you did that.
He was the first one to speak out before that CNN article, at least on his Yelp page, and
I told you I had a fire in my house. I was ready. I was ready after the Me Too.
It's interesting.
Who is assaulted me? And let me go nuts. It was done, and I was like, who else is in my fucking
But that was that's what Me Too did.
That is what
it was
Me Too
the
did.
first time
it is what
in
Me Too
our
did.
whole entire lives. We were given the permission
to say
this person did this to me, and it's not okay, and it's not my fault.
And when I saw
and it's not, and just because I didn't get up and walk, I have kicked myself about that. Why didn't I just get up and walk out?
But you must know that a lot of the accounts that have bordered on walking up and getting out he had responded with enormous rage. He is a large, disgusting man.
He is.
He would often lock the door, and I have to say that's a huge similarity among all of us. Is he would lock the door. So you're a captive woman with a large man. The vibe in the room was not one that would cater to. I know it's easy to say that.
I know.
A lot of people say that. And I wish I had too. I have fantasies about like just destroying his sort of genital area with my boot. But I couldn't have done that because I actually felt fear.
I hate that question though.
I talked to one of the lawyers this morning, and I was asked that, and she said, I don't want to sound bad. She did qualify it, but she just, and I understand.
Because that's been the narrative for the last 100 years.
It's not our jobs not to be assaulted. It's their job not to assault us.
Yes.
And
that's so true.
That's how we've been living our lives.
Right. And she said to me, well, why did you go back for the, I went back for the marketing session after that. She said, well, why did you go back?
Because I paid all this money.
Right. And the thing is, and he is a master manipulator, and he had me believing, well, if you don't do the marketing session, then this will all have been for, naught.
And you feel like you just wasted thousands and thousands of dollars.
And he makes you pay up front.
When I listen to that demo now,
I cringe.
Yes,
I cringe.
Granted,
it's garbage.
I was telling Sarah the story when this totally ended, which was after the assault, and then I got a audition for an agent, so I was still like, confused because you're like, what? Now I'm an agent, but I'm finishing my demo, go to this agent audition, and I bombed it. I thought I did it good because I did what I was trained to do. So I was like, wow, I totally nailed that. And they just had this like expression, or they were just like, and they're like, oh, all right, thanks. And I was like, can you tell me what your honest feedback, like really what's going on here? Because I could sense this. And they were like, well, you just sounded like a porn star. Yeah. And I'm like,
and that's how he trained me.
That's how he trained
in my head, I fucking sound like a porn star because he trains me to sound like some sex pot on this because sexy was the genre for every
the
fucking
only thing
woman.
that sells.
Yeah.
Only thing. Everything is about sex.
Sounded gross.
And I should say, that's the biggest
I was
opener.
like,
wow. Speaking of that, I should say, if there is anyone listening to this that is not already propelled to or compelled to come and find us, if anything happened to you, please find us. You have done nothing wrong, and we will hesitate at nothing to take this motherfucker down. So
I have to say, this is something. It's not exactly about us, but it was something why it kept coming up. So because I want people to know this, because this is part of it. One of the things that kept coming up with me and the handful of women I already knew in New York was that he had a daughter.
Oh, kills me.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
He had, in 2004, when a lot of us
talked about it a lot.
She was a baby at that point. And me and Heather and some of the other women that we kept talking about, well, what happens? What happens when his daughter is a teenager? Exactly. And she's bringing in her friends into the house.
To sleep over?
Yeah. Exactly. Because some of the stories talking about how he's exposed himself or accidentally was naked and whatnot.
He's walking around the house.
I had my compulsion to always make this come out as my fear. Because it's hard enough as an adult woman. You're hearing everything that we've struggled with to make this, but I had a lot of guilt because I kept thinking, oh my God, if I don't say something and he doesn't get caught and stopped, what happens when he does this to a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old that's in his house? And how is that going to affect? Exactly. Right. But if you can prove it, if they come forward, if they tell somebody.
Plus that girl has to still go through all of that.
Exactly.
Right.
And I just, that's where so much of my guilt came from. Was that...
Stop this maniac.
Exactly. Like, is it my fault that I didn't come forward and it's still happening? Like, if I had come forward, would it have happened to you?
Well, I struggle because, again, I was so young and obviously nobody would have heard me or listened. I know that. But I mean, 2002,
Amanda
2003.
May, I was not young, and I don't think anybody would have heard me or listened to me 3 years ago.
No, I know, but it's still tough because for me, there is still like, oh my God, 50 plus women after it happened to me. It's happened to.
But I should say it's his responsibility to take care of his family. When I begin to feel sorry for that wife and kid, I don't feel sorry for her.
I don't feel sorry. I feel
sorry for the daughter.
I feel bad for the daughter.
The wife needs to. I mean,
but the daughter. But she needs to know. They need to know.
Because think of it this. I thought about that literally for a nanosecond because all I thought was, what happens if it doesn't come out? And she's in college. I know. And one of her friends says, "Do you know what your dad did to me when we had a sleepover at your house?"
Yeah, exactly.
That's way worse. They can move. They can change their name. They can leave him. Somebody said that to me. They're like, "What would you do if?" Because I had somebody else come to me about a student issue, with a child being abused and like because this shit happens nowadays.
It's all the time.
And I said, if anyone were to come to me and in any way tell me that my husband abused not only one, but 57 women.
57.
I don't know if I wouldn't be in prison because at the very least, I would instantaneously kick him out of my house and my life. Absolutely. But at the most, I don't know if I wouldn't go into a rage and beat him senseless. Yeah. And so if you are that complicit with your husband having done this to so many women and you have a daughter.
I know.
And I know, and I hate that. I hate because people are like
judgy.
I hate to sound judgy, and I hate to sound like, if he had a son, it's okay. But no. The fact that that the daughter knows about it and knows that her father did this, and as the woman, you are basically saying it's okay. We're going to stand by your dad.
You're condoning
what kind of message is that sending to your adolescent? Pubescent daughter.
Couldn't agree more, and I think she should become a women's defense lawyer in her older age. I think there's something good has to come out.
I pray that she chooses her daughter over her husband.
Well, I couldn't agree more, and that's something that very thinking, caring women think about. But again, when I begin thinking that, I often go like, well, fuck him. It's his responsibility.
Yeah, it is. I mean, this is on him. It's like, it's like the shame thing we were talking about before, ladies. This is on him. Yeah. And I am very
Don't masturbate to me reading chocolate pudding ads.
You have a child. This is on,
Don't do that, and I won't say shit. Don't do that. Don't masturbate in a conference room. Don't masturbate in a sound booth.
Don't do it if you don't have a daughter, and if you do have a daughter, you're really
How am I different than your daughter? How am I different than your daughter?
Exactly. What would you do if your daughter came to you and somebody did that? How would you feel? Would it be okay?
Exit line a lot of women have referenced is, depending on the time period that this happened, and the exit line for me was, my wife is having a baby this week. We're cool. I think you had the same thing, right?
Yeah.
He loved to use her.
I'm no danger.
He used her, and then he also used my relationship.
Yep.
When he would turn off the tape, he'd be like, your boyfriend doesn't need to hear this story, or something, and he would use that. So then again, making me feel
that is horrifying.
Anyone on Backstage.com that is interested in Peter Rofe should Google his name. The articles now, the difference between, I guess, February 8th, when that CNN piece came out, and today is like, boom, like it's just page after page of this man is a monster.
It's only been like
amazing.
Yeah.
It's before it came out, the day before,
we all felt, but that's our raising.
Yeah,
that's the way we were raised. We were afraid that it was going to fall on us.
Yeah.
We didn't know there was
so how many of you, I mean, I know that you were
I was early on.
One of the 16. You were one of the 16.
Yeah.
You found this.
They found me from the Yelp, and that was right before.
So were you one of the people in the CNN?
Yeah,
you were one of. You were some. Oh yes, Samantha. Okay, right. There's so many names now that I've lost track.
I was there from the very beginning, but I was not part of the original 16 because I still had fear of the repercussions in the New York market and living where I live.
I do have to say, to attest to that, is that I felt so bold to speak for the CNN and for all the other stuff with this because it's not my industry anymore. And I totally understand that fear when it's in your own industry. And I'm so glad that you feel better and that you're being supported in that. But I do have to say, me coming out, I felt very strong and had that fire under mask too, because I felt like I can do this.
Not even
anyone who can't do this, I could do this for all these women that can't talk, I can do this. This isn't gonna...
Let me explain a little bit about the CNN article, okay? Yeah. This is kind of what happened, okay? Let me just give a little bit of a timeline.
Yeah. I'm curious about that.
So when the MeToo movement started, Elizabeth posted on a large voiceover group Facebook message board her MeToo story about Peter. I was contacted by someone else that knew that I was one of his students and had been through this, and was like, "Hey, did you see this?" So I went to look at it. I then reached out via Facebook, but then we were told that we should take it down, or somebody should take it down, and that original Facebook post was then taken down from the website.
And this happened when?
This happened in November.
No, it was earlier.
Okay.
It was at the end of the summer, as I recall. I think it was like late September, October.
Okay.
October. It definitely wasn't early September.
Yeah.
It was fall.
2017.
So that's when the group started. So she started the, I don't know if it was Elizabeth or Heather that started the Facebook group, the Not Fun Club, for us to have a place to talk. And so if we knew someone else, or if someone else kind of found out that they were part of this, there was some place to refer them to. Like, hey, contact Heather or Elizabeth and we'll add you into this group. So we have a safe space to talk about this. So we all got into that space. And I mean, there were about 20 of us actually in the beginning. Yeah. Right, like almost right away, within a few weeks. Yeah. And that's when we started talking to someone in law enforcement. We started talking to CNN. And when the article came out, not everyone that was in the group had spoken to the detective and had come forward. Right. So when they talk about the 16, that's the 16 that had actually gone to the detective.
At the time the 16 came out, I think it was 16 was just police reports. It was like 30 at that point.
Yeah. Right. By the time the article came out.
But we started off as just an email chain on Gmail, and it became so crazy because we were like, we fucking hate him. And let's make this a private
Let's make this a right.
So we became like angry face.
It became this awesome, I mean, then all of us know it became this awesome thing where we could share our stories, hashtag them so we could find each other's stories, and then all of these similarities.
They are
scary.
So weird. I mean, there's basically 2 other people's stories from right around my time. Yeah. Where it's like, I mean,
it's so incredible.
The same.
Yeah.
Like, it's...
But some escalate in ways that I have a hard time reading. He uses force on some of these stories. I'm like... First of all, how dare you use force on someone? And this is physical force.
Yeah.
In a locked sound booth the size of, I don't know what's, I mean, I was
4x4. It is 4 feet by 4 feet. So
he's in there with you. This is a large man. So anybody victim shaming in there has to realize that he has locked you in a size of a room. I'm looking in the studio now in a sound booth. That's a scary situation.
A lot of people listening to this are in the VO industry. You know the different sound booths. This is the small booth. The 4x4 booth that really was not made for two people. He is in there. He is blocking the door.
He is naked often.
Naked and he is next to you.
He grinds, he rubs, he grabs you, he gropes you, he rubs your tits, he rubs your ass,
he takes your hands and puts them on him.
Yeah. He suggests you masturbate yourself and also masturbate him. These are things that I went, this was my particular case. It was in an office this size, basically. He's on the couch naked. He's able to take his clothes off in a matter of seconds. It's a horrifying situation. And the idea that I felt it was my fault because he's masturbating, I can't, it's the way that our generation of women was raised. I think it's changing. The zeitgeist has changed. It really, really has.
And it's going to change more, and it has a long way to go.
It does, but now, and I tell my...
It started with the women's movement. It started with the women's movement, after the last election. I'm not trying to make it political. I promise. That's all I'm saying about it. But that's when it started.
I agree. It is the one good thing about this administration.
For sure.
It is the one good thing.
I'm not trying, like I said, I'm not trying to make it political because everyone has the right to their own political views, and I'm sure there are people out there that disagree with these. But I'm just saying that it sparked a movement of women to finally say
enough.
Don't masturbate on me.
100%. No.
I mean, don't grab me. Don't touch me. Do not touch me if it is not. Time's up. Time is up. See, that's almost like time's up better than Me Too.
Well, it's like
it's both.
And it's both. But it's like
Time's Up is the response to the Me Too.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Me Too comes first.
Yeah, it comes first.
Time's Up to me is like this isn't even personal anymore. It's like
it's done.
You're done, buddy.
Yeah.
You are done.
You gotta start working on
that was a natural progression.
It was a progression. Right. It came out of it. Right. It came out of it. It came out of it.
Acknowledged it, and now
Time's Up is you're not allowed to have money anymore. You're not allowed to have women. You know, you can't have your trap anymore. You can't. That's where it has to start. So.
Right.
Well, that kind of leads us into now. Anyone out there listening that's just starting out, or even a veteran, we're in this wonderful age of women right now, and I'm not trying to make this like all rah rah, but we are. This is the time is up.
Make it rah rah. Go ahead.
They should be scared.
They should.
Not even predators should be scared.
They should be scared, and it's not permissible anymore. And so if you are a female in any industry, whether you're listening to this because you want to start voiceovers, whether you're already in it, whether you have nothing to do with voiceovers and you work someplace else.
Yeah.
What this has really come down to is, unfortunately, where we were before, we felt that we couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
It's not that way anymore.
Right.
You have the right to say something. You have the right to stop it. You have the right to press charges. You have the right to say it's not okay. You have the right to not feel shame.
Yeah.
And so
even if it's after the fact, I want to even if it's not right, even if you don't see, this was my thing. I thought that I missed my window of opportunity because I hadn't said something right then and there. And I love what you're saying right now, Alyssa, but I really want to be clear that even if you didn't say something right then and there, you can say something after, and it's not too late.
The four of us are, not within the statute of limitations. So
but if we hadn't said anything, we wouldn't have found the people that are.
Exactly, 100%. That's what I mean. It's still worth it. Well, we're taking him down regardless.
He's super done. He's done.
Bye.
I hope he's listening to this.
Well, he's as much of a narcissist, I think, that would listen to this, maybe.
I'm sure. But here's the thing with what you just said to kind of bookend that, is that most of these men that do these things, they don't do it once.
No, that's true.
Just because they did it to you 14 years ago, they didn't stop there.
No way.
And so even if it was 14 years ago or 20 years ago or 50 years ago, if they're still alive, there is a more than fair chance that they did it to someone else. Yep. And you might be the one that empowers that person to come forward and stand up
for us. Yeah.
And stand up. Like
Elizabeth, hey, what's up? Thank you for doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
You're gonna find a sisterhood like we have all found. I just got chills.
I do.
You're gonna find support that we have all found, and I think one of the things that has been so strong for me is just that realization that we're not alone.
Yeah.
That we weren't
it's huge.
We weren't just.
And I have to say, the "you're not alone" thing is a little bit of a double-edged sword.
It is,
right? And it's important to recognize that because, like,
the Schadenfreude thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, I did have this reaction of like, I'm not alone, and like, I'm not crazy because as women, especially when you see the similar stories and the similar reactions, and it's like, it just makes. It makes you feel more confused. But then there is also, and maybe this kind of goes back a little bit to what I was saying earlier, because mine was so early on in this process, that there is a little bit of like but there's so many. I struggle with a little bit, but I just constantly reinforced to myself that like there literally was nothing that I could do at that point in time.
There was not.
You know what I mean? And so like I just have to own that. And I feel bad because everyone I talked to happened to try to
you
stop
do not have to own it.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel bad. Take those words right out of your vocabulary. It was not your fault at all. We blame ourselves.
We still do it. We're so conditioned to do it.
Basically the 90s, which is basically the 80s.
Yeah, right.
There's no talking about it. about it.
When I read the CNN article, I just, there was, of course, the jaw on the floor, like everybody else. But the other part of me just went, of course.
Yeah, there was that too.
Of course he did this to other people. Of course this lunatic, psycho, vile, scumpon, douche nozzle did this to other people. Of course he did.
Well, you get away with it. My husband is such a genius, and he says that what he was doing, I don't know what it was like early on, but maybe he would dabble his toe here, try something here, and then he got obviously bolder and sloppier, and now everyone in the entire world knows about it.
Right. Well, and I don't know, I did write this in my story on the Facebook group, but my first what I would call inappropriate interaction with Peter was very odd and strange. It was, at this point, I had been going to private lessons. He didn't have a studio or anything yet. This was up in his apartment on the upper
Don't go into someone's apartment, period.
Well, and here's what I'm going to say.
I know.
But here's what I'm going to say. This was minimum 4th or 5th teacher now that I have been working with, that I have been paying, because I'm a singer. Wow. That's where I started from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all of my voice teachers, to this day, if I wanted to go back, like, you go to their apartment, that's where they have their piano, and you do your voice lesson.
That's true.
You're right.
100,000%. The only place you go to have your voice lesson.
I guess so that disarmed you in a way.
So it completely disarmed me.
Same thing. When I first got here, was musical theater. It's in vocal teachers. They have to have a studio with the piano in it.
Right.
Who has that?
So I was going up to his apartment on the Upper East Side, and I think we was like once a week, twice a week, or whatever. Right. And I lived down in the Village, so it was a bit of a commute or whatever. And, well, before I moved to Brooklyn, I thought it was a commute, right? So I was running very late for one of our appointments, and this is kind of like cell phones are still newish, you know what I mean? They don't work quite in the same way. And I guess maybe he had called to say that he had to cancel because he was sick or something, but I never got that message. So I don't know if he really called or not.
He didn't.
But so I got to his building. It's a doorman, told the doorman I was coming up. They called up to him. He said, okay, you know what I mean? Went up in the elevator.
Is this before he was married? Like he was...
No, he was married. He was married. Newly married. Married.
Okay.
So I knock on the door, and he answers the door, and he's wearing nothing but a t-shirt. No pants, no
That's
underwear.
very common. We've heard that one before.
Oh, yes, and I didn't... And I was just like, how terribly embarrassing. I'm running late, so I'm already in this position of, like, I'm the bad actor.
Right.
And he's like, Amanda May, like, I called you. I told you I couldn't do it. I'm really sick. I have a really high fever. And I was just kind of like, well, we can reschedule, trying to, like, block
But it's funny, because, like you said, at the time, now you look back, and it's like, but the doorman called up. He got it.
And I didn't know any of those things when I got up there. I didn't think about any of those things until really more recently. You know what I mean? When I was putting it back together in my head, it's like, no, he had a doorman, and I definitely went to the doorman, and the doorman definitely picked up the phone.
Wow.
And he called and said, yeah, exactly.
And he whips his gross pants off.
Yeah, so that was like, and we kind of exchanged, and I was like, I'm really sorry. I hope you feel better. And he's like, just come, whatever our next appointment was going to be. He's like, just come back then or whatever. And
who has ever been so sick that they don't realize they're wearing pants?
Exactly.
I
am so sick. I don't know.
Not once has it been like, I was so sick, I forgot to put on pants.
I
like
wear pants after my C-section, so he can suck it.
Oh, so there you go. Yeah, exactly. But so it was at my next appointment that he started to bring up the whole nudity thing, and he was like, well, I could tell since, after what, he's like, sorry about last week, but, I could tell that you're an actress and you're cool, and so that doesn't bother you.
It's always the word, you're cool.
You're cool. This doesn't bother you. But that, when I look back, I'm like, oh, that was totally him testing the waters and like figuring out how far he could push this and how much I would, and he was already kind of like disciplining me a little bit for like being late and like whatever, and I just, I look back at that now and I'm like, oh yeah, and this makes sense because this would have been in his earlier years too. Where
he learned the verbiage and practiced the verbiage.
Yeah, he sure did.
To completely
he perfected
into a position where we felt like it wasn't a choice.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly 100% spot on. Nails it.
Yeah.
He made us feel like we didn't have a choice.
Yes.
And I mean,
that you had to do it.
Yeah.
If you didn't do it, then you weren't
an artist.
Then you're not a professional.
Yeah.
You're not really cut out for this.
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, one of the move he played on me the first time, it was, so I think we had our group session first, and then I had my first private session also in his apartment.
So he was still doing the apartment thing, even with the studio.
My first, I only had one session in his apartment.
I was going to say, it must have been because I started in late 2004 and he had his studio already.
You know, honestly, I think there was a reason why he had me in his apartment. I don't think it was because he couldn't. He had a studio.
Oh, because he had,
so. You know, I think he was,
it was a choice.
Setting me up.
And this is 2004.
This was 2004 in my first session. So in his apartment, my first solo session with him, he convinces me, obviously the usual, I need to loosen up, you know, clearly, because I'm just so uptight. And so he brings up the idea that we need to take our pants off. We need to show each other our asses.
That's his big thing, the ass.
The ass.
Yeah.
What the fuck
a lot of the assaults began with him mooning the person in the booth.
So that was the start with me, was the mooning, and I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I feel, you know, he's like, no, it'll be great. It'll be great. And I remember going in the bathroom and like checking out my own ass and being like, I don't know. Like, I just felt, felt weird. It felt weird. Like, and I wasn't really, I didn't come out without my pants on. I came out with my, I was like, I don't know. Yeah. And I came out, but his pants were off.
His are off.
He was already, and he, not his dick.
And this was in his apartment.
He did not show me his dick yet. But he showed me, not right off the first session, thank God. But no, I mean, well, I don't know. Anyway, so he showed me.
Fair.
I don't even know what to say that. So he showed me his ass, and then it was like, and he made it like playful, like look at, come on, now you do it. I'll show you mine. Now you do. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And he made it quick. He didn't make it like it was almost non-sexual, even though it obviously was sexual, and he was already preparing me for the future assaults that he was going to lay upon me. But so that was the first encounter. The first encounter, and I did end up showing him my ass, and I remember just trying to, very uncomfortable, but just making, I'm cool. I'm okay. You giggle uncomfortably.
Oh, and it's just your ass.
It's just my, like what, Yeah. And I did actually tell my best friend about that. That was the only thing I told her.
I told two of my best friends
I told her, though.
About when I went to his apartment, and he showed himself. Did you? And I remember, because I remember thinking that I was in the wrong, and I had, whatever. Right. Yeah. And I told my two very close friends at the time, and both of their reactions were like, "Are you fucking kidding me? That's disgusting." And I remember them both telling me that I should not go back there. And I remember me saying, "No, I'm sure it was just a whatever." And that's why then, when he did assault me, it almost reinforced that, well, I'm not telling anyone, because I told my two friends about this, and they could see it coming, and I didn't.
Remember, I convinced my friend it was fine, because he was like, I got the wife and the kids, and blah, 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 everything's fine. And I told her about it, because I felt awkward about it, but I blew it off like, but, it was just...
But I'm cool, it's fine.
And I have to say, for future women who are in this situation, or will be in this situation, doing that is something I regret enormously, because that protects him. And that makes me crazy that I did that. I protected him because I didn't want... I just did it. It was a byproduct of my silence, basically. Yeah. Is being like, well, it's just a one-time thing, and it's all this rationalization. The fucking guy masturbated a foot away from me to me reading food copy. It's so psychotic.
It's so psychotic.
And had me masturbate he was like, I'll never forget him being like, now grab your tits, now rub your tits. I remember him saying,
he grabbed my tit instead.
Well, I did it myself, but it's he would do it to other women too. He was a groper. He is a grinder.
He is a groper and a grinder.
He is a sick person. Anyone giving...
And an exhibitionist.
And there's so many things. It's like a bouquet of psychosis.
It is a melting pot.
That's what, it's what you said about that, and I think this is the other thing. When you're starting off, you feel like you can't say anything because they already everybody knows them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, you can.
So that's what you can now. It's not okay. Just because someone, it's not going to ruin your career. Exactly. Maybe it used to, but it's not anymore.
No way. Exactly.
My career is not ruined. No. Your career is not ruined. I feel worse for the three of you who never got to realize your careers because he scared you away. But I lived in fear of that for a long time because I wanted it so bad.
Yeah, of course.
I wanted to be a voice actor as soon as I knew what it was. It was
if
like
I
the perfect.
Through, I would have done the same thing. I wouldn't have.
And it took me, even though I met her, and my agent came to my wedding. Okay.
Nice. Oh yeah, so you're very close.
I am very, very close to her, and it still took me 6 years to tell her that the man who basically introduced us and how I got her assaulted me,
right?
And also assaulted other clients of hers. It took me because I was scared she wasn't going to believe me. I was scared she was going to drop me, and that my career was going to be over because of this man. And so I really
so hard for us.
So hard. And artists, it's so much that we sacrifice.
It's such a hustle
to be in
this. It's worth it, right? We say
absolutely.
It's totally worth it.
Oh my gosh.
But that being said,
it absolutely. I'm not. What happened to me was not worth it.
No.
So don't misunderstand what we were just talking about. Anyone listening. I am I love the career that I am in, and everyone else that has been in the career has been the wonderful women that I work with, the agencies that I work with, the casting directors, everything in New York has been nothing but just extraordinary, the experience that I've had. And so anyone listening, just know that it's not okay, and you don't have to sacrifice your integrity and your self-worth for some person that's trying to sell you on this great life by giving up this piece of yourself.
Yeah. And I want to add to that. I love what you just said, and I want to add to that by saying that no matter how small or insignificant or brief it seems.
Yeah.
You know, I had I thought, I went through the whole thing of, it only happened once, and it was brief, and it was sort of uncomfortable and icky, but I guess I can, no matter, for 1 second, my best friend said to me that her dentist actually touched her breast at one point, and she said, she just kind of edged away from him, and it was just a second. That was 1 second too many.
Start a Facebook group.
So I don't care if it was. I don't care if it was just. I don't care if it was just once. I don't care if it was only a couple minutes or a couple seconds. It's all wrong. I really did that trip on myself for a long time. It was like, it was only once. It really wasn't. It was just kind of short. It was over. No, it's not okay.
Don't protect him anymore.
It doesn't matter that he didn't take us. It doesn't matter. He touched me. It was non-consensual. It was not solicited. It was not okay. So no matter how small or even if it's only once, none of it is okay.
I think that's a great place to start to wind down a little bit. We've gone an hour, I think. So I should
go
say
on for hours.
There's an email address. If you have been a victim of Peter Rofe, if you have been a victim of anyone, if you just want to talk to us, this is an incredibly empowering sisterhood. Our email address is voiceoverjusticeclub@gmail.com. That's voiceoverjusticeclub@gmail.com. I'm obsessed with checking it. So please email me. You'll get me. I'm Sarah. This is the rest of our team. Do you want to, should we do the name?
Sure.
It doesn't matter. I don't know. I guess you'll figure out who was talking.
I'm Angie.
Yeah.
Samantha.
Amanda May.
Alyssa.
Great.
Last name. And also, thank you again to Julia Niven at Soundvine Studios in NYC for graciously donating your space to us to allow us to come together and share with all of you listening to this podcast. Call her, use her, and work with her.
Beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's awesome.
You haven't even seen the best part.
I know.
And it's in a great location.
Yes. But just everyone who's listened to our stories through the end. I mean, I know it's been a long hour. I know that some of you may be dealing with your own demons after listening to this, that may have triggered some things in your past. Just know that you are not alone. Whether it was at the hands of Peter Rofe or someone else, you are not alone. And please reach out to us if you need support.
Totally.
Yes, we are here to support.
Yeah.
We certainly are. We're supporting each other. We're here to support you.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
We're all in this together.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And good night.
So there we are. Thank you to Sarah, Amanda May, Alyssa, Angie and Samantha for being so brave to come on and not only meet each other and talk about this stuff for the first time, but in such a public way. And it takes a huge amount of courage to do that. And I was incredibly impressed with that. So thank you also to Julia Nippen from Soundvine Studios. You can visit her website, soundvinestudios.com. She has a fantastic facility in Nomad, the Flatiron District in New York. And that's that for today. So thank you to everyone involved, and I'll see you on the next episode. Thanks very much. Thank you to this week's guests, our sponsors J. Michael Collins, IPDTL and Backstage Magazine. Thanks also to Kyle Marie Colucci and Chris Sharps for social media support. Join us next time for another class.